Reforms to the Rockefeller drug laws go into effect today. Far more lenient than the former laws, the reformed versions have drawn considerable controversy, especially from some Senate Republicans. Here to talk more about this is attorney Thomas Carr, who also happens to be a former deputy legislative director for the Assembly minority. Mr. Carr, thanks for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
So first of all, let's talk about, for the uninitiated out there, what is happening today and what perhaps is the biggest thing about the reforms that stands out in your mind?
Probably the biggest thing that stands out with the reforms that are going into place today is taking away the mandatory prison sentence component of the prior drug laws and giving discretion back to the judges so that there is now a whole range of sentencing that can be imposed.
One of the things that seems to be drawing a lot of the controversy is this provision to seal nonviolent conviction records once a person has completed treatment. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think obviously from a defense point of view, that's a good thing. You have someone who is an addict who deals with their addiction, gets treatment, becomes a productive member of society. I think it's a good thing that their records can be sealed so that they have better chances in employment. However, the downside to that is it creates somewhat of a hierarchy in a sense. Someone convicted for a prior felony, let's say for DWI or for writing a bad check, would not have their records sealed, even if they had turned their lives around as well. So it kind of is unfair against certain other people who have made the effort and actually turned their lives around.
Do you think there's a lot of concern out there, too, that a lot of this is going to leave the door open to people who have already been convicted to now come forward and say, well, look at me, or do we have some grandfathering clause going on in here?
Well, basically, where we stand right now is the laws go into effect today. Today is the effective date. In prior changes in the Rockefeller drug laws, that has happened, where previous convicts have gone back to court and said, hey, you know, our sentences should be changed. And in the past, the courts have held, no, it's not backdated. It takes effect from the day it takes effect from, and from then forward.
Given your former position in the Assembly, how do you think they can reconcile the differences here? It seems that most of the division is right down party lines when we're talking about these reforms.
It is. Basically, drugs and guns are two things that seem to split the legislature pretty much straight along party lines. I really don't know where they're going to find room in this for growth. One of the areas in the law is that they're mandating now that there be a drug court in every county throughout the state. I think that's a good thing. I think that those counties where the drug courts have been in place have been a huge success. So that's a good thing. But it's also kind of the legislature catching up to what's actually been happening on the ground. As of January, there were already 175 drug courts throughout the state, with another, I think, 23 in the planning stages. So it's a little bit of the legislature acknowledging that they have been a success and now mandating that they be in every county.
Do you see a further reform in the future? I mean, obviously the Republicans don't have a ton of traction right now to get something else in the works, but eventually down the line, should they regain the majority, is this something we can see come back to the reform table once again?
It may come back to the reform table, but frankly, even if the Republicans retake the Senate, it would take an act of God for them to retake the Assembly. So I think that the status quo